Hey everybody, it's Pastor Hugo. On Monday, we started reading our way through the New Testament. We're using the Navigator's Guide, 5 by 5 by 5, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 5 different ways to reflect on the text. We're starting with the Gospel of Mark, and for this week's devotion, even though we're reading Mark 1 through 5 this week, I want to focus in on just Mark chapter 2 and just some things Jesus does in Mark chapter 2 and what we learn from that. You know, when I'm teaching Apostles' Creed and Confirmation, I teach the kids about Jesus' active and passive obedience. Active obedience, those are the things that Jesus does. Passive obedience, that's the things that Jesus allows to happen, allows to be done to him. And the large part of what we see Jesus doing is passive obedience. He's allowing things to be done to him, allowing things to happen. But occasionally, especially in Mark chapter 2, we see Jesus active, Jesus making things happen. Jesus is sticking the knife in and twisting it into some of the rabbinic teachings just early on in his ministry. Look at some of the things that happen in Mark 2. It starts with what the rabbis had been teaching about the forgiveness of sins. And Jesus claims right away to have the ability to forgive sins and tells a paralyzed man, your sins are forgiven. And he draws the ire of the Pharisees right off the bat. And then he takes on the fellowship teaching, saying that it wasn't right for God's people to hang out with sinners, with tax collectors and prostitutes. And so right away we see Jesus challenging that. We see Jesus hanging out with tax collectors, even calling one named Levi or Matthew to be one of his disciples, and then sitting at a table and eating with them. He's challenging that teaching of the rabbis. And then he moves into fasting. He's asked why his disciples don't fast. And he downplays fasting, something that the religious elite of the day are doing regularly. And it's become a mark of their faithfulness, and Jesus downplays it, says it's not necessary. And then he moves into Sabbath. You know, God gave the Sabbath, one day of rest out of every 7. God gave that to be a blessing. But for the people of the day, the religious people of the day, the rabbis, it has become a rule, a regulation, something that has become a burden to people, not a blessing. And so Jesus doesn't ignore God's teaching on the Sabbath. He restores it to what God originally had planned, a day that is to be a blessing to people. So I look at all this together in Mark, all the stuff that happens in Mark chapter 2, all that Jesus does, and I see one principle at work, and that is that God is a God of relationship more than he is a God of rules. Spend some time thinking about that, and then join us Sunday morning at 8:30 for Bible class, and we'll unpack. We'll do a survey of the first 5 chapters, and then we'll spend some time just unpacking chapter 2 and all that means for St. Matthew and for the church of the day. That's it. Have a great week. Bye-bye.